Lighting in the last 10 to 15 years has seen a similar revolution or renaissance as cameras. You know, back when we actually even met 6 years ago, we were using like a Kino, fluorescent tubes, we were using the lights that we have back here, warm tungsten lights, and everything's changed. So we're excited to be able to offer this course at the pinnacle of where a lot of stuff is shifted to LEDs, sky panels, light mats, you know, and before we get to that, we're gonna really sort of break down some of the benefits of the other lights. You know, we have tungsten, which is the unit you have behind us. We have HMIs, you have LED. So yeah, we're excited to sort of break down what makes these three different and the applications you use one over the other. So, I mean, it only seems fitting to start the Lighting 101 with the first light that was ever really made. If you're going back to like Charlie Chaplin films, tungsten was the first light. You know, Thomas Edison, a burning incandescent bulb is what's lighting film sets in the early movies. And that really extended kind of honestly through the 70s, the early 2000s when technology finally changed. Tungsten is 3200, and a lot of people say like, oh, let's just make that tungsten. Tungsten ends up being kind of a reference for that color temperature, but 3200 on the Kelvin scale is where tungsten, where lamps, where a lot of that warmer sort of light tends to be. Most tungsten units come with barn doors. Barn doors mount to the front of the light, and it allows you to shape the light and mount gels and diffusion to them. On the back, you also have a lever. The lever, when you turn it, will allow you to spot the beam or flood the beam. And what this is essentially doing is moving the filament away and closer to the reflector, which allows you to narrow the beam or spread it out. Tungsten lights are also very affordable. With all the new technology with LED lighting, you can rent or buy many tungsten lights for really cheap. For their cost, they're also incredibly bright. One of the coolest things about tungsten too is they are rated at 100 CRI, which is color render index. We have a whole section dedicated to that later on, but the takeaway here is that the color fidelity of a tungsten light looks beautiful on your actor or your subject's skin. One of the downsides of tungsten units are their weight. They're heavy, they get really hot. Even just touching one of these things once it's been on for a few hours is a recipe for disaster without gloves. Another bummer about these lights is they are a fixed color temperature. By design, tungsten is 3200 Kelvin. I find the fixed color temperature to be a downside because I've gotten very used to lights that are either bicolor or full RGB, meaning that we can swing anywhere from 32 to 5600 Kelvin. Tungsten units, on the other hand, actually get warmer as you dim them, which in most circumstances is not very helpful. Not to mention the dimmer is not built into the light, so that's something else you're gonna have to rent as well. I also find another downside of these lights is they require a lot of power and usually require 1,000 watts to 2,000 watts on the lower end, and that alone maxes out most household circuits. One of the lights that we use a lot on a lot of our sets is a source for a LECO, and what a LECO is kind of comes from theater. Theater, when you have an actor moving across like a stage play, you have like a spotlight, and by design they actually have leafs is the term for them, and you can blade down the light so it's only playing in a certain area. And if you're doing like a small little indie thing and you don't have all the flags to chop and shape the light, LECO is a great spotlight where you can have total control of it. It's punchy, it's tungsten, and we've used it countless times on videos.
We use LECOs a lot, or we've used them a lot for, kind of what Tom mentioned, party scenes where you might have like what looks like a spotlight searching around or party lights kind of moving around. It gives a lot of energy to a scene. One in particular was the Kyle Really Really Yeah video. We had two LECOs off to the side just searching and moving around the scene to kind of create energy like it was like a show or performance. We use them heavy for backlights or edge lights because they are, like you said, tungsten lights, and Joe, LECOs in particular are very punchy. Throwing it in the back to get a hard edge or backlight, or even from the roof, a backlight. Just there's a lot of different ways you can use them because they are so punchy. But yeah, one in particular talking about with having an operator off to the side, moving lights around to create energy. LECOs are used a lot. And we've used them for a lot of those, types of scenes. And in particular, I don't know if you can think of any offhand of any of your videos, but like I mentioned,
we did one for Lincoln Jesser In My Place, and that was a single source lighting. We had a black void we set up with a bunch of black duvetine, and over the black duvetine was just a single LECO. And a lot of people asked like, oh, what's that light? That looks so good. Literally, it was one LECO and some fog. and that was it. And it honestly is one of my favorite shots we've done, because it just gives a really moody, really strong, spicy backlight, and then the shadows on the face totally fall off. And I think it's honestly, it's with one light you can create something super dynamic.
And along with that video, we also did put a bunch of, I'm not sure, they were baby, I forget the
those are
term.
par cans.
Par cans, we put par cans, which are tungsten if I'm not mistaken, across the ground in the back, and we had them on like a dimmer, a flasher, and they were like flashing. It just kind of created a stage light kind of scene, and we're flashing. I think that whole video is actually tungsten lighting, just different forms of it.
HMI really, I mean, even within the advent of all this new LED technology, will always have a place on a grip truck. You will always use an HMI for the exact reason. And that reason is, replicating sun. That is such a cool thing to have access to, Say you have a cloudy day, say you lost the sun, say you're shooting at night where it's pitch black, you turn on the camera and everything's, blacked out, having a light that can literally mimic the sun is, you're kind of playing God in a lot of ways, which is so cool. I mean, to have a light that you can use for, a punchy highlight through a window, or, we just used it recently for a moonlight, for a forest, night exterior. I mean, it's a great light to have access to.
That's typically what we use for any of the like night exteriors. We'll use like an HMI, again, referencing the Payne Lindsay, movie trailer that we did to light this whole kind of forest scene. All we used was a M18, which is a form of an HMI. We just sticked it way up in the air, shone it into the forest, and that was the only light, and that acted as our moon and lit up the whole forest. We wouldn't be able to do that with an LED light, and so they're just very powerful, and like Tom said, you can mimic the sun, mimic the moon, and it's just a very powerful light that you should really know how to utilize, and should definitely be on any set that you have.
Yeah, one of my favorite uses for HMIs is getting hard light into your set. As you can see right now, it looks really great when you can key your subject or your actors with soft light, but having a hard light source kind of raking through a window, kind of like what we have mimicking on this back wall, when you have hard light in your frame, it just adds contrast. It makes your images really kind of leap off the screen.
Yeah, talking about emulating like daylight, going back to that, we shot a Hunter Powell video. And on that video, it's just all a bunch of like top downs, and the scenes are constantly changing and supposed to feel like a new day, now nighttime, in the evening, the scene is constantly changing to show this progression of time. And one of the key lights that we used was an HMI outside the window with different, ways of cutting down the light, shining it through stronger, no diffusion, a little diffusion, but we're able to act, push the sun through the window and make it feel like a bright afternoon, then all of a sudden throw a little diffusion in front of it, dim the lights in the house and make it feel like, it was kind of later in the afternoon and the sun was going down a little bit. So being able to really push, light from the outside at any moment in time to create, different beams of light, hard light, soft light, and create different scenes all within the same hour, but create 5 different scenes is something we're able to do with the HMI because of how strong it is and all the ways you can play with it. And I think another thing is if you're trying to create like shafts of light, we use HMIs a lot to push through holes in a wall, slats in a wall, windows, and then you throw in that haze in the scene, and because it is such a hard light, you'll get those beams of light or those shafts of light that you're looking for. I know that's something that is like really useful in particular, and a question I get a lot is like, hey, how'd you get those beams of light coming through that wall or that window? And it's probably because we have an HMI outside of that scene or that wall shining through with a little bit of haze on the inside.
And another video too, this it's kind of before a lot of the LED revolution, is we did this video for Maddie Ziegler, and we wanted to mimic lightning coming through. Think of like shutters on your window. They make these metal shutters that you literally turn a knob very fast and it lets light through, closes light off. And when you put that in front of an HMI, we were able to have bright HMI, black, bright, and like that sort of mimicked the lightning effect. And believe me, the LED is way easier, but it did kind of create a very beautiful effect because it was hard.
Because it's so hard and punchy, like lightning can be, and like when you're watching a movie or a TV show and it's just like the whole scene just lightens up with, you know, lightning, and then you just boom, boom, it just gets really bright. We're able to do that with the HMI. We also did it on the, just thinking about the Alex Marshall video, same thing, recreated lightning. We had a hose running down the window like it was rain. We had the HMI on just, you know, a little shutter and just flicking it back and forth, and just able to recreate basically lightning with the light because it is so powerful and punchy. And it worked really, really well for that gag.
The way an HMI is designed is to be 5600 Kelvin. Like scientifically, if you were to hold a light meter, that is the Kelvin that light is producing. But depending on your white balance in camera, this might actually appear warmer or cooler. So one thing to actually help your HMI to feel a lot warmer to camera, if you're going for like a warm, sunny day interior, is by adding a quarter straw, CTS, or a quarter orange, CTO, to the light. By adding this, it just gives your unit or HMI just a slightly warmer feel. Because there's times I've lit day interiors, I spark up the HMI, and it just feels artificial. You know, the sun isn't white. The sun just inherently feels warm to our eye. So when you can add a little bit of gel, like a straw or CTO, to the light, I find that it looks a lot better. So yeah, I mean, if you've been to a trade show recently, NAB, Cinegear, you know, LED is everywhere. I mean, we're kind of in the middle of a lighting revolution. You know, LED really sort of, where we touch on tungsten, all the cons, you know, it's heavy, it draws a lot of power, it's a hard source of light. LED is the exact opposite. In fact, it's extremely versatile. It can do a whole gamut of color, anywhere from usually 2800, tungsten, 45, 56, all the way up to 10,000. You know, another pro is it's RGB, meaning it can recreate any color, any gel, which, I mean, I can't tell you how many jobs we've done where we're getting Kino tubes, cutting them, putting the red gel on it. I mean,
we used to have to all the time before LED lights were, you know, really popular or big or coming heavy onto the scene. We'd have to get gels, and we'd have to cut the gels, place it over the light to create a color, you know, we'd take Kino tubes and we would cut out red gels and gaff tape it to the light to create a red light. Now with, you know, the advancements in LED lights and the RGB, like I said, I mean, you could pick any color right on the light. And so that's where, you know, they come in super, super handy.
Yeah, I mean, especially too, when you take 30 minutes, you put the gel on the light, and if the director's like, oh, hey, that's a little too red. Now, LED allows you to be so picky. And as a DP, that is the coolest thing, because you're always looking at the monitor. We're always our own critics, you know? So being able to just change it by a point, add a little more red, pull a little bit of the coolness out is such a game changer.
You could change the hue, the saturation, what else? The tint, all these elements of, you know, an LED light are able to be adjusted and changed. Like I know specifically on the sky panel, which we're even using as our key light right now, and we'll get into what key light means in the future, but you know, the range of what you can use this light for and the adjustments, like Tom was saying, if it's red and it's like a little too red, you can actually dial back the saturation of the red so it's not so red. So those are all things that you can do with LED lights, and it's just, you know, it's pretty cool, and you could be really dialed in and specific to exactly what you're trying to get.
And I think really the thing that a lot of people love about these lights is how incredibly soft they are. I mean, it really, as a DP myself, this is my go-to key light. You know, sending this through a Chimera, sending this through a larger diffusion, there's nothing that looks better than on an actor or your subject's face than an LED. It's just inherently soft. It looks very beautiful, and with just a few clicks on a lot of these lights, you can get some really cool results.
So furthermore, moving into the portability of these lights, they're so portable depending on the type of LED light you have, but you could get them in a 7-inch Quasar little tube light that you're able to fit in the dash of a car, and you literally just snap it right in there, and now you have a nice dash light, which before, how would you create that dash light without that small little form factor LED light? So they come in all different types of shapes and sizes, and the portability and the weight of them is something that's really unique, and like the light mat that we have off, and we'll probably show this setup as well, but the light mat that we're using also to augment this scene, it is literally like less than an inch thick. It's super lightweight, and I've known plenty of people on set to walk around with those lights off camera powered by a battery and just like, willy-nilly being able to move it wherever they want at any given second. And that's something that's, I think really popular and great about LED lights is their portability.
DMX is essentially a term used to describe your light's ability to have a library of effects that it can produce. From cop gag, TV flicker, fire flicker, strobe light, lightning. These are just some of many. What's cool is these newer LEDs have a computer built in. So if you wanted to mimic something, mimic a fire or a TV or any of the things I mentioned above, from a click of a switch, the light will actually pulse and flicker and simulate those things. As a DP, you're always going to be fine-tuning your lighting. You're always going to be looking at the monitor. Even during a take, you're like, oh man, I wish I was able to bring that down just a little bit, And before, if you're lighting with tungsten or fluorescence or HMIs, you're kind of stuck with what you got. Or if you want to take 10 minutes, you can drop a scrim in or an ND in, but what's so nice about these lights is everything's a knob. Just a few clicks this way, a few clicks this way. And if you're like me, I'm super OCD. I want to just see what it looks like this way. I want to see what it looks like dark. Being able to addition those changes with an instant, opposed to like, oh wait, you want it darker? Okay, give me a minute. I gotta bring the light down. I've got to drop a scrim in. Like that, those things, the director never wants to wait on it. Like, no, forget it. Let's just shoot. And the whole time as a DP, you're like, fuck, I wish I could have gone and just, so this thing's got a freaking USB remote. You can click it up, click it down, and that is a game changer. Just being able to fine tune, as a DP, that is, it's really elevated my work. Just being able to, on the last moment, even in between takes, let's take it up a notch. Like, I could never get away with that before because it's just a huge operation to take down the brightness or exposure on old school lights like tungsten and HMIs,